Javon Curtis along with Corley Woodland. This is a continuation of Distrust in Financial Institutions, Part 2. Thank you for tuning in. Removal of Africans from their rich commercial environments and kingdoms, including Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, through the slave trade between the 14th and 18th century, did not destroy their proclivity or business in trade. Since the time when black people in America secured the right to earn capital for their labor following emancipation, they have faced systematic financial discrimination with respect to banking access and fees. Over a century ago, racism and segregation required black people to pool their resources to support each other, and black-owned banks played a vital role in the economic health of black communities. On October 1888, Capital Savings Bank in Washington, D.C. became the first bank organized and operated by African Americans. Within 4 years of opening, the bank's deposits had grown to over $300,000. Between the end of the Reconstruction era and the beginning of the Great Depression, over 130 black-owned banks opened, providing capital to black entrepreneurs, businesses, and prospective homeowners. In the early to mid-20th century, the federal government took a large role in the stabilization and financing of the home mortgage market in the United States. In response to the housing market problems brought on by the Great Depression, the Homeowners Loan Corporation, also known as HOLC, purchased and refinanced over 1/10 of all non-farm U.S. mortgages by 1936. The HOLC subsequently created color-coded maps in 200 cities to better understand the risk of the mortgages with the guidance and expertise of local real estate market professionals that reflected long-held patterns of racial discrimination, a process that came to be known as redlining. Make sure you remember that term, redlining. Shortly after, the recently created Federal Housing Administration, also known as the FHA, which by the middle of the century covered the insurance of over 1/3 of the U.S. mortgage market, creating their own redlining maps to guide decision-making. In tandem, the FHA and the HOLC helped lock in existing patterns of racial discrimination in the U.S. housing market. This period coincided with the Second Great Migration, which witnessed millions of black people migrating from the rural South to the cities of the North and the Midwest. Given the existing market discrimination that non-minority-owned banks practice, their race-based exclusion of black people from the mortgage market provided an opportunity for minority-owned banks to provide service to a much larger market of black migrants looking to purchase homes and start businesses. However, black migrants face labor market competition with new European immigrants and legacy black residents in addition to labor market discrimination, which made it difficult for minority-owned banks to finance economic development efforts. During the 7-year period between 1983 and 1989, the number of black-owned banks declined 22%, while the total number of banks in the U.S. declined by only 12%. Wow. Black-owned banks make capital more accessible because they approve a higher percentage of loans to black applicants than other banks, but their impact is limited by their low numbers and often precarious financial standings. Compared with white-owned banks, minority-owned banks are more likely to rely more heavily on government deposits and therefore hold fewer loans and more liquid assets. In 2008, the Partnership for Progress was launched by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve to help promote and preserve minority-owned banks. But despite its effort, the number of black-owned banks has declined from 48 in 2001 to 18 in 2020. Drastic numbers. Banking access in the black community has not only been limited by the decrease in the number of black-owned banks, but by an overall decrease in the number of banks in majority black neighborhoods. Since 2010, the number of banks in majority black neighborhoods decreased 14.6%, with J.P. Morgan shrinking its branches footprint in majority black neighborhoods by 22.8% from 2010 to 2018, compared to a decline of just 0.2% in the rest of the U.S. Yeah, I'm going to repeat that one time because that is just amazing. It says, since 2010, the number of banks in majority black neighborhoods decreased 14.6%, with J.P. Morgan shrinking its branches footprint in majority black neighborhoods by 22% from 2010 to 2018, compared to a decline of just 0.2% in the rest of the U.S. The FDIC defines minority depository institutions, also known as MDIs, as federally insecure depository institutions for which either 51% or more of the voting stock is owned by minority individuals, or 2, a majority of the board of directors is minority and the community that institution serves is predominantly minority. Ownership must be by U.S. citizens of permanent legal U.S. residents to be counted in the determining of minority ownership. As of December 31st, 2020, the FDIC listed 142 minority depository institutions located in 29 states, Guantanamo Bay, and Puerto Rico, with cumulative assets of $287 billion. For context, TIAA had $280 billion in total general account assets in the first quarter of 2021. Of the 142 MDIs, minority depository institutions, there were only 18 black or African American owned banks with combined assets of $4.58 billion. That's just amazing. With more information, here is Corey Woodland. Sorry.
Hello, family. Thank you everybody for tuning in once again to episode 13 of the Hood Paralegal Podcast. Now, before I start, I want to just express my gratitude to everybody that's been tuning in, commenting, and just showing us support. Thanks again to the team behind us. My sister Jay Renee and the whole Prison Riot family, and just everybody that support, period, man. We love y'all, and we going to stay consistent with bringing y'all these facts and this substance, and we just thank y'all for taking time out y'all's schedule to tune in. Now, as my brother stated earlier, we're going to continue elaborating on bridging the wealth gap for African Americans. And I'm going to start off, it's no secret that the current financial system has failed at keeping wealth in the black and Latino communities. Our communities suffer from lack of wealth, money circulation in the black community, and generational transfer. That's why we need to create more new black-owned institutions. And I commend the rapper Killer Mike for creating the Greenwood Bank, which is a mobile platform inspired by the early 1900s Greenwood District, where recirculation of black wealth occurred all day, every day, and where black businesses thrive. Today's Greenwood is a black-owned system developed by us and for us. And if anybody have time, check it out. You can just Google Greenwood Bank and Killer Mike. They doing a good thing over there. So go support. It's a black-owned institution, and we got to start somewhere, and they planted the seed. So go support. Now I want to elaborate and tap in to how to close the racial wealth gap. Many Americans will face a long road to personal financial recovery after the pandemic. For the black population, a few key measures could aid us, to continue and rebuild and grow our wealth. The first one is home ownership. A significant increase in black home ownership is one way to bridge the racial wealth gap, as owning one home is still a primary method of building wealth and financial security in the U.S. Housing and lending discrimination, along with income disparities, make it harder for black people to break into home ownership. For instance, for most people, 70% of their net worth is tied to one's home. Black people own homes at a much lower rate than whites, and in many cases, their homes are often undervalued compared to similar homes in the majority white neighborhoods. And based off that emphasis, if you Google people on social media, you hear many stories of where, there were statistics and studies done and undercover investigations done where we were getting cheated out of our appraisal for our homes versus when a white person have their home appraised, and it could be the same house, it was undervalued, and that money added up. And according to the National Community Reinvestment Coalition, only 42% of black people own homes compared to 73% of whites during the same period. And now what's even more alarming is the racial bias that exists within the housing market. Now check this out. Now this is the ultimate finesse. And I think after hearing this statistic, everybody should feel some type of way. You know, a report conducted by the Brookings Institute found that comparable owner-occupied homes located in predominantly black neighborhoods are often undervalued by $48,000 on the average versus homes where less than 1% of residents are black. You know, this report estimates that this devaluation can account for about $156 billion in cumulative losses for black homeowners. Understanding the importance of eliminating home ownership gap, many initiatives have been developed to encourage black home ownership. You know, they got a lot of catching up to do when we talk reparations in that aspect, in my opinion. And the National Association of Real Estate Brokers 2 million home program seeks to eliminate the racial wealth gap within the United States by advocating for black home ownership.
All calls other than properly placed attorney calls may be monitored and recorded.
In addition, the National Community Reinvestment Coalition suggests taking whole initiatives to add 165,000 new black home owners annually by 2040 to increase the black home ownership rate by 60%. Now, President Joe Biden's administration also seeks actions to narrow the racial wealth gap. Now, he proposed a neighborhood homes tax credit to private investors to develop affordable homes for low and moderate income homeowners. Now, the next step we're going to talk about is investing, which is key. Market participation is also key to building wealth. Those who participate in the stock market by investing are likely to have more wealth than those who do not. White families had 6 times more in retirement savings than black people, according to a recent study done by the Urban Institute. Now, this rate persisted even after controlling for income. The report also found that black people were less likely to participate in employer retirement plans compared to whites. And Kevin Matthews II, the founder of brand and author of From Burning to Blueprint, Rebuilding Black Wall Street After a Century of Silence, believes that the key to building wealth and closing the wealth gap is to encourage more black participation in the market. And I agree with him. You know, in 2010, for example, he ran a what-if scenario to determine how much wealth he could accumulate if his parents had invested $1,000 per year until his teenage years. After realizing his parents could have potentially accumulated over $800,000, he started his business, Building Bread, to teach others the importance of investing. Now, Matthew cites that often black people forego the market because of their lack of understanding, but is determined to change this mindset. While the stock market isn't perfect, it's one of the least racist institutions that we have, says Matthews. And unlike the housing or job market, the stock market provides an equal opportunity because if black and whites invest in the same stock, the outcome is the same for all. And, you know, a lot of people fear investing in things of that nature, but it's easy to get started in. There are so many apps, even for example, if you got Cash App, you know, they offer an option where you can start investing in stock in one of your favorite companies, and all it takes is $1. You know, you can start with a simple $1 just to see how it is. And once you plant that seed and see that you own something, it gets you in the habit of wanting to invest. So I definitely highly recommend everybody start somewhere. And if you got a fear of investing, just give it a shot. You know, it's a good risk. I'm going to put it like that. Now, the next step is business ownership. Black business ownerships can also be the key to closing the racial wealth gap. President Biden has pledged to reduce the racial business gap by increasing federal spending for black-owned businesses. His administration plans to pledge an additional $100 billion to small disadvantaged business owners. A study found that black business owners, have 12 times more likely to have wealth compared to black people who don't own businesses. And a recent survey found that black businesses contributed more than $165 billion in revenue and created more than 1 million jobs. That's phenomenal. But while black business ownership is the key to bridging the racial wealth gap, black people have lower levels of business assets compared to other racial groups. A report from Center for Financial Household Stability at the Federal Reserve Board of St. Louis found that black business owners held 8% in business and financial assets compared to white and Asian Americans, which hold 1/3 of their assets in business and financial assets. You know, since black people are less likely to have business ownership interests, the wealth gap continues to persist. You know, we got to take action today and reverse this curse. And remember that one client or contact makes a significant difference in your wealth over time. You know, in conclusion, if we want to bridge the racial wealth gap, you know, it starts with us. You know, we can make complaints and, you know, and run these campaigns. And one thing about it, nobody else going to do it for us. You know, we got to get back to that mindset that they had in Greenwood back in the day, you know, when Black Wall Street was thriving and, you know, recirculating and continue to build things and make things for us. And like I said, it starts with planting the seed in your children, teaching your children financial literacy. Even if we wasn't taught it by our parents, you know, we got to start and implement it and break the cycle somewhere, you know, because we deserve wealth. You know, we come from one of the richest countries, period, you know, in our native land. So I salute everybody for taking time out to, you know, hear what we have to say. And I just commend everyone, and I suggest, man, just start somewhere, start today, taking action. Because one thing about it, when you take action, you realize that you learning and you get to seeing what's being done, and it's harder for people to finesse you, as we say, you know what I'm saying? So let's not finesse ourselves and take action today, and I thank you everybody for tuning in. Stay tuned in for the next episode. Have a blessed week and success to everyone. Love.